What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Kevin Hoop Show. We've got Gilbert Burns and Jorge Masvidal with a co-main event for this Saturday night. And honestly, I think this could easily be a main event of a regular fight night or even a main event of a pay-per-view if these guys were going for the belt. These guys are ranked number 5 and number 11. Number 5 coming from Gilbert Burns and number 11 coming from Jorge Masvidal. Honestly, if you said that to me 2 or 3 years ago, that Jorge Masvidal would be ranked number 11 in 2 or 3 years, I would say you're probably wrong. Just for the fact that Jorge Masvidal was on one of the fastest rises to the belt that I think I've really seen from any UFC guy. He goes on and beats Darren Till. He then fights Ben Askren. He then fights Nate Diaz for his own belt, basically. And then he goes and fights Kamaru Usman twice for the belt. Not only did he get the title shot pretty fast, but he got another one after that just because the first one was such short notice. Now, I understand the short notice and you kind of wanted to come in better the second time, but I almost think he looked better the first time in my honest opinion. And just for the fact that he lasted all 5 rounds in the first fight, and then in the second fight, he gets knocked out, and I believe it's one of the only knockouts that he's ever had in the UFC and in his whole entire career. I really don't understand how you get worse in the rematch when you should have had all of the firepower and knowledge going into the second. It just makes no sense how you get that much worse in the second fight. I think if he got knocked out in the 4th round or the 5th round, all right, I understand. You made a mistake when you're super gassed, but in the second round, like, I don't know what Jorge Masvidal was doing, and then after that, he goes and fights Colby Covington and doesn't win. That fight was all 5 rounds, and then he goes and sucker punches him in a bar afterwards. I just didn't understand that. To me, that's a bitch-ass move.
Everybody in the world called him a bitch.
There's no other bitch-ass move you could possibly make other than lose to a guy in a fucking street fight, essentially, and then go and jump that guy with all of your friends and buddies when that guy's all alone, not expecting anything, at his house. Like, it wasn't at his house, but it was at a bar in Miami, and I'm sure Colby Covington felt somewhat safe there. And the fact that he gets jumped like that, just a really big bitch move in my opinion. I don't know if Jorge Masvidal thinks the same on that exact sort of situation. There is 2 sides to every story. I've really only heard a little bit from Jorge Masvidal and a little bit from Colby Covington. A lot of rumors were up in the air that Colby Covington needed surgery or shit like that with his tooth. Who the fuck knows? That's all hearsay in my opinion. The matter of the fact is, it was a bitch move from Jorge Masvidal. Colby Covington's the better one in the ring as of right now. So with that, we're going to be going into this Gilbert Burns fight. And if we are just looking at who's fought recently, what those fights ended up kind of resulting in recently, Gilbert Burns has been on a fucking tear through this entire fucking division, and Jorge Masvidal fought for the title twice, struck out both times, and then lost to the number 1 contender. That's not necessarily saying that Jorge Masvidal didn't tear through the division as well. Getting wins over Darren Till and Ben Askren, even Nate Diaz, was somewhat impressive. But I think Gilbert Burns' run was a little bit more impressive in competition and high-level guys. Now, since the 2019 mark, 2018 mark, he's fought Gunnar Nelson, Damian Maia, Tyrone Woodley, lost to Usman, and then won again against Thompson. Jeff Neal was the most recent one, but before the Jeff Neal fight, he fought Khamzat Chimaev. So the only ones that he lost that I just named there were Usman and Khamzat Chimaev. Those were the only 2 losses that he received, and I think that all of those guys are absolutely fucking killers, especially the Khamzat Chimaev one. He did go 3 rounds with him, and it did go to a decision, and I believe that's one of the only guys who actually resisted Khamzat Chimaev. It actually gave Khamzat Chimaev somewhat of a human look. I think everybody saw Khamzat Chimaev on this podium, on this pedestal, and thought he was one of the hardest guys to beat in this division, if not just to beat in the UFC in general. He was absolutely killing people. Like, look at the Kevin Holland fight. He goes out and finishes him, just literally throws himself at him and finishes him within like the first 20 seconds of the fight. So just that kind of mentality, I think, got really taken down after he fought Gilbert Burns and looked somewhat human. And I think that realization was kind of brought upon people when he fought Gilbert Burns. And I think Gilbert Burns is that type of guy. He's not a pushover type of guy. I think Khamzat Chimaev might have thought that, but Gilbert Burns, he's a fucking strong dude in general as well and has that Brazilian type of grip. So I think that with that, he had a little bit to say to Khamzat Chimaev and showed him, hey, I'm not no fucking pushover, bro. Especially after facing Kamaru Usman and seeing what it takes to win the belt and then getting back in the win column against Wonderboy Thompson. I think that really was the perfect recipe for him to go and fight Khamzat Chimaev, who was probably going to beat him if he didn't do something like that, because I think, you know, having Khamzat Chimaev off of a loss would have been a little harder. Either way, though, with what I just said of the kind of comparing their two different reputations, Jorge Masvidal with the win over Darren Till, Ben Askren, and Nate Diaz, I really do think that, you know, Kamaru Usman, and yes, Jorge Masvidal has fought Kamaru Usman, but I'm talking about their last wins. That was the last Jorge Masvidal streak of tearing through the division. And in my opinion, those guys weren't top-ranked guys. In my opinion, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is, Kamaru Usman is, Tyron Woodley was, and so was Neil Magny. He might have not been the highest ranked guy, but at least he was somewhat decent. I just don't think Jorge Masvidal, number one, had that same type of reputation going into 2020, 2021, going into those Usman fights. And to add on to it, he now hasn't fought in over a year. So I really do think that Gilbert Burns has the upper hand in this fight. I think Gilbert Burns, I may have not saw it. Jorge Masvidal just hasn't been looking good, and I needed that realization. I needed that reminder, because after Colby Covington whooped Jorge Masvidal's ass, I think I was kind of in that mindset of, yeah, this guy's on the way out. I kind of forgot about that. I was just remembering the glory days when Jorge Masvidal did the extremely amazing flying knee on Ben Askren and then beats Nate Diaz in the baddest motherfucker title shot. So I just think that was a little bit forgotten. And for any of you guys that have forgotten, he lost to Kamaru Usman twice, did worse in the second fight, lost to Colby Covington, does a bitch ass move after that. Jorge Masvidal has not been doing good personally, in my opinion. I think that a lot of his dealings and winnings come from him having a good personal life. I think there is a story out there of him doing an ayahuasca journey or an ayahuasca trip, and ends up, you know, kind of finding himself a little bit, realizing things that he needs to do in his life to get everything situated and to be where he wants to be. And after that, I think you saw the rewards of him trying to get his life together and do things right and train correctly. He said it himself in the Joe Rogan Experience. He got off that track of what the things that he was doing in the wins. When he was getting W's in the UFC, he was doing the right shit in his personal life and even in his training life. When he was getting those losses, he was hanging out with the wrong people, doing the wrong shit in his personal life, doing the wrong shit in training. Number one, what kind of Jorge Masvidal are we going to see? And number two, does he still got it? That's my biggest question to you, Jorge Masvidal. Do you still got it? And what are you doing in your personal life? Have you went back and reverted back to your ways of doing the right shit in your personal life and in the training camp? I don't think it's going to be easy for him. I do favor Gilbert Burns in this fight. My official prediction for this fight is 110% Gilbert Burns. For anybody that is just fucking has somewhat of an IQ, they're going to be going Gilbert Burns for this fight. For anybody that lives under a rock or has a million dead brain cells, they're going for Jorge Masvidal because they think that he's still got it. If Jorge Masvidal comes into this fight like the Colby Covington fight, Gilbert Burns is taking it all the fucking way. He's riding his fucking pony home and getting up, ball. We're going back to Brazil and partying, baby. And I'm 100% down with that. Go back to Brazil and fucking party with the Brazilians, please, Gilbert Burns. Nothing would put a bigger smile on my face than Gilbert Burns going back to Brazil with the #1 contender spot, hopefully, in the next few months after beating Jorge Masvidal. But at the same time, Jorge Masvidal makes some exciting ass fights, and I can guarantee you I fucking tune into just about every Jorge Masvidal fight that he's shit talking in or has somewhat of a chance. And I think that this is that fight like Darren Till. This is that Darren Till situation. Everybody's counting him out here, and he has to come back and prove himself. And I think if he does that, he could have a pretty exciting 2023, 2024. Honestly, it's going to be an exciting Saturday night, guys. We're going to be going live this Saturday.
Do it live. Fuck it.
At 9 o'clock p.m. We're going to be having a lot of laughs. We're going to be putting bets on the fights. We're going to be talking that shit. We're going to be watching the fights. It's going to be a great ass time. Without further ado, that's all I've got for you guys. Let me know in the comments who you guys think is going to win, whether it's Gilbert Burns, Jorge Masvidal, Alex Pereira, Israel Adesanya. It's going to be a fun ass night either way. Again, tune into that watch party. If you guys like this video, hit that like button. If you guys are new here, hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate it. And with that, have a great fucking day.